what are the timelines and how the timeline healing works?
Well, what basically, I'm going to do just a little bit of basic physics here. And
Yes.
even though I say basic physics, this is leading edge physics, even if it's basic. So there are researchers right now that are working on the things I'm going to talk about. You know, they really want to understand what are timelines, how are they manipulated, when are you allowed to change a timeline, when are you not, things like this. And, you know, those of you who have watched sci-fi, you know, shows on television like Star Trek and others, they violate a lot of the laws of physics in those shows because it's Hollywood. But there's also a lot of intriguing ideas in those shows. And the main idea of timeline healing is that we live in a sea of multiple timelines and space lines. Space is multidimensional. Time is multidimensional. And if you, I don't know how well you can see my fingers, but this is a lattice network. Think of this as the lines of space, and this is the lines of time. And together they form a tapestry, an infinitely large tapestry. And the truth is, the non-locality principle of quantum physics essentially states that you can go anywhere in the tapestry of time and space and perceive what is taking place there. That means the past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously, which is a very difficult concept for our minds to understand, because our minds work on linear time. Oh, yesterday was the past, tomorrow's the future, now today is the present, and it's pretty simple. But that's only one facet. That's like one spot on the tapestry. And when we go into the past in timeline healing, we're simply jumping into a different timeline, if you want to call it that, or a different place in what we call the dominant timeline. And then you're creating a new timeline that includes the healing that you're doing to your past self. So you actually take a time machine and you travel back in time to visit your past selves. And we visit the ones that were traumatized. So let's say you were beaten or abused as a child. Maybe when you were 5 years old, your father used to beat you or something. I use that example a lot because it's real common. You know, probably half of us had some kind of physical punishment if we're old enough to back when physical punishment was a thing, because as of people born in the 70s and 80s, it's not so much a thing anymore. But a lot of us were abused as children physically, with just spankings a lot of times. And so we maybe had a trauma around that. And so we go back and change the experience of what happened. Now, we may not be able to change the details without violating free will. For example, if your little 5-year-old is about to get a beating from father, you wouldn't go back in time and take your 5-year-old and run off into the forest to prevent getting beaten. That would be a violation. But you would give them a healing as they're being beaten. You're giving them a healing. You're pouring God's love into them as they're being abused or hurt or whatever's happening. And so it changes your experience. Now, every time you think about what happened when you were 5, you remember the beautiful healing you received when your father was beating you. So you see, you now have a new timeline. And it makes a difference in the body. You can see cellular changes in the physical body after doing timeline healing in many cases. I'm not saying in every case, it depends on the nature of the trauma. So the idea is that you can go anywhere in time and space and perceive what's taking place there. That's the first principle. And then you can jump into a new timeline. And I have diagrams that I show in the level 2 training. We go a little deeper into the physics in level 2 than we do in level 1. And I show there are anomalous effects as a result of time travel. 2 of them are deja vu and the Mandela effect, which we talk about. And there are actual beings in the universe, and their job is to keep the integrity of the timelines. so that people are unable to violate the timelines by, you know, going back selfishly trying to change something without asking permission from the people who were there and stuff like that. So it's not like you see in the science fiction movies where you go back and change something and then you come back to the future and everything's totally different. The other side's winning the war and things like that. That's not how it works in real life. There's safeguards to prevent that from happening. But time travel is real, and anybody can learn how to time travel. And in timeline healing, we do actual time travel, mentally, of course. We're not taking our physical bodies back in time, although that may also be possible using higher technologies. But we go back mentally and etherically. We go back using what we call the etheric body. And in fact, most of what we're doing healing on is our etheric body. That's level 5 of who we are. And this is the body that gets traumatic imprints into the cell. So post-traumatic stress disorder is an example of something that can be healed using timeline healing. Where your body is actually, let's say you were in the war and you were in the bombing raid in the war. Now every time somebody sets off a firework, you go like this, you know, every time you hear a firework. And so that's post-traumatic stress disorder. And in timeline healing, you can go back to that war event and do a healing on that. And the post-traumatic stress starts to immediately decrease. We haven't done enough actual research into, you know, the level of effectiveness. It takes a lot of effort to do the research on that. So basically, I'm just going on what clients have told me. I feel so much better after that session. I'm no longer reacting the same way as I did before. And then consistently over a period of time, they're no longer reacting. It doesn't wear off after a few days and they go back to being, you know, traumatized again, you know. So many people have come to me and told me that timeline healing is hundreds of times more powerful than traditional psychotherapy. That's not to say that traditional psychotherapy doesn't have its place. Of course it does. And there's many times when it's a lifesaver, but timeline healing, it takes fewer sessions and it works more quickly than most psychotherapy. I think I can safely say that.